Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh. We got Reed joining us in the Escape Pod today. We're going to be talking all about specifically Palpatine, secrets revealed from the novelization of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. We have a source from Screen Rant, an article that we're going to be using to kind of go down the list with this stuff. If you have not read the novelization and you plan on reading the novelization, avoid this episode for spoilers. So spoiler warning now. If you do not care about the novelization and you have seen the movie and you want to know all about Palpatine, how he came back, and etc., stay tuned.
Another happy landing.
Oh, yeah. Right, okay. All right, cool, yeah, well, all right, we're back. We're back.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. And we have evidence of a lot of things that should have been in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker.
Everything in that article, it's based on the book, right? Like it's an article about.
Yeah, it's an article based on the novelization, also subtitled as the expanded edition. They've been doing that with a lot of the novels like that have been based on the books. Like they've called them the expanded edition just because they've, I don't know,
because reasons
expanded on the film. Yeah, given a little more light.
Yeah, that's fair
to the film. So,
all right.
Yeah, but I figured we would just go down the list of kind of Palpatine reveals, specifically Palpatine reveals, and only focus on Palpatine because I don't have a copy of this book yet, and I don't have. I honestly, I've never really bought any of the novelizations before, and I don't really want to start now.
No, yeah, I've got other things that are more important to me right now. I don't want to be disappointed any more than we already have been.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's like, it's nice to get these reveals out like online and all that.
Yeah, I did like the article. I thought it
clears up.
It made me feel slightly better. Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean,
not that I'm like fostering like this deep like burning hatred of the movie or anything like that, but it made me feel a little better.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it was just more or less just coming to terms with the movie a little bit more and like actually like kind of accepting these facts and going like, okay, this movie happened. We're not gonna be getting a redo.
Nope.
And as much as some of us might want it, this book is gonna do its best to try and kind of bring those of us who didn't like the movie to terms with the movie.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Try.
So, because this was something with Revenge of the Sith too. A lot of people who didn't enjoy the prequels do in fact enjoy the novels, right? Like the books. Yeah. And part of that is just because they don't like the acting in the film or whatever, and but I love the prequel, so I don't have anything against that. But as far as like the criticism of like some of the acting and some of the dialogue and whatever, when you're reading a book, it just doesn't come across the same way, right? So and also then you get more context because you're inside the characters' heads and all that stuff. So
books don't just get to cut like from scene to scene or just like they can't. There needs to be a lot more context. Otherwise, you're reading it and you're just like, what the fudge is going on?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll stick to Palpatine. We might do like
Yeah.
maybe we'll do another one that's like about the whole book in general. But I figure we just quickly run through this, and then maybe like chat about something quickly after. But
Yeah, sounds good.
yeah, okay. So number one, about Palpatine revealed in this book is the fact that he is a clone.
Yes.
So they've confirmed that Palpatine is a clone, and you know, it's kind of a callback to some of the stuff in the expanded universe where like they had a storyline where the Emperor comes back and then there's a bunch of clones. Yeah, it was the Dark Empire series.
Interesting.
Yeah, I believe it started off as a graphic novel or a comic book or something like that, and then yeah, it got adapted into a novel or vice versa. And I listened to the audiobook for those. It's a really dark, twisted story. Yeah.
I mean,
So-
what'd you say it was called? Dark Empire?
Dark Empire. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
two of them. Yeah.
I would assume that, you know, since they
Yeah.
named it Dark Empire, that it might be a little dark.
It was weird. They almost turned Luke into a bad guy. Like he almost became the Emperor's apprentice based on the fact that he actually was able to come back to life and everything. He kind of got sucked to the dark side a little bit because of that. Yeah, it was really kind of like out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like it. Some people did. At one point, there's like the climax of the thing is when I believe it was either Leia or Luke or somebody. They were trying to kill the Emperor, and every time they killed the body or whatever, his soul would be able to jump into another clone body, and then basically it was a matter of killing all the clone bodies until he was dead. But the final kind of threat was that he was going to kind of possess the unborn baby of I think it was Leia or somebody. There was somebody in the scene or something that
That's
he was
so
able to,
dark.
it was really twisted. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
messed
This is just
up.
out of my vague memory. I listened to this audiobook I think around 2007. Like that was the last time I like listened to this story. But
dude.
yeah, I don't know. I was kind of torn about it. I was like, is this? Do I
That's
like this? Like, I don't know.
I mean, like if I was already reading like dark fantasy or something like that, like one of the Diablo books or something, then I would kind of be like, all right, like I already made this decision to read this dark fantasy, sci-fi novel or whatever. But that's not what Star Wars is. It's not mainline Star Wars, not by a long shot.
No, it doesn't sound like Star Wars when I talk about it either, right? So yeah,
I'm like, whoa, what kind of sci-fi horror movie or mashup are you talking about?
Exactly. But that's just it, right? Like none of this came out of George's head.
No.
And more so as much as they try to make these sequels feel like Star Wars, they didn't come out of George's head. So to me, they just don't feel like Star Wars. Like when I watch them, at least they don't really feel, they feel like super high budget fan fiction with all the same actors, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like,
that's what I found funny, because like later in that article it mentions like how they like Disney tried so hard to dump all the canon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time they're throwing in these like bits and pieces that are kind of like odes to stuff like throughout all the old canon. Like I think in the article it specifically mentioned the arm or the Omim. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like OMMIN or
the rig that he's on.
Yeah, the rig that he's like floating around on with it, like that's holding his crippled body up or whatever. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's like an ode back to something in
it's a callback to something in Legends.
Yeah, and so I was just like, I find it kind of ironic that like if they're like taking that from that old thing or whatever, it's like, well, didn't you guys say you were gonna dump all of this stuff, but you're still taking like bits and pieces out of it to get the kind of like
they've been doing that
geek
a lot.
Factor out of it from people. Like I was just kind of
they've been doing that a lot, and like
but
I think it's just a
one
fan
more thing on top
service
of
thing.
that.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the biggest one was like when they started bringing Thrawn back, like for the Star Wars Rebels show, they brought in a big character in the expanded universe, which is Grand Admiral Thrawn. And they totally changed like the timeline of kind of when he comes into play and everything. But people love the return. Like I quite like the character myself, but
Yeah.
they've been doing that where they've been taking kind of the expanded universe and using it as a bucket of ideas, and then kind of twisting that into existing canon as much as they can, right?
Yeah.
So some of the things they do it really well, and then other things it's just not pulled off as well at all. And this entire Palpatine resurrection clone thing, I was never on it from the beginning. Like, never on it.
And so before I forget too, like honestly, I guess obviously I haven't read this this expanded universe book or whatever, but I didn't really feel like he needed to be a clone or anything. Like to me, it was already when you see him like hooked up to a giant arm and he's already like mutilated and deformed. I was like, that was already pretty believable to me.
Yeah.
That was the body that like made it through getting like massively burned and electrocuted and stuff like that and thrown down a pit and left to die.
Yeah, I think that's another thing,
like,
right? Like that's one more thing that's just
like,
kind of like come up out of this book, even though it tries its best to clear up some of the stuff in the movie. It almost makes you wonder. It's like, okay, when they made this movie, like did JJ even know if he was doing this is a clone or not? And
was there any actual thought process into this, or was it really just, hey, guess what? Palpatine's back, guys. He's gonna rule the galaxy.
Maybe he's a clone, maybe he's not. And like apparently online, I was reading that Ian McDiarmid confirmed that it was a throwaway line in the script at one point where he mentions that he was a clone or something like that. There's something
interesting,
and that's how it made it into the book because it's an idea that came up that was then discarded for the movie, and then I guess they literally provided Ray Carson, the I think it was the author of the book, Ray Carson or something. Anyway, they gave her all the material for all the deleted scenes, all the concept art, everything, kind of like laid it out on the table. And then she was able to write this novelization based on all the additional stuff that they put, and then add her own little pieces and bits in there as well, I would imagine, with Lucasfilm's stamp of approval. But with a novelization like that, she's like super, like she's working with that story group really closely. So because it's the novelizations for the previous films are still floating around. Like they've never been redone before. There's always only ever one novelization and one movie, and then there's like the audiobook that's drawing off that original novelization. But so like this is all canon stuff that she's like writing in this book and everything. So they want to make sure that it's like good. I've never actually though bought any of the novelizations, including in the Disney era, because like I've always considered the books canonicity outweighed by the movie. Like I've always thought like, okay, the director and the writer of the film will always outweigh any book because
pretty much,
because that's where Star Wars starts. Like originally that's how it started, and like that's how the movies are the groundwork for everything else that comes after, right? So all the comics, all the books, they're all using the movies as like a center point, and that's how it should stay, right? So when you get something weird like a novelization where it's supposed to basically tell the same story over again from a different perspective, there's the little extra bits that they kind of add in there. You could consider them canon for sure, and they probably are. It's just I don't like to weigh on them too much, just because like they're not something the director wanted in the film, right? And if they didn't want them in the film, or if it got cut for some reason or whatever, like maybe some of that information doesn't always make it to the author, and I don't know this stuff, right? Like I'm just speculating here, but yeah. Anyway, Palpatine's a clone. Not a huge fan.
No, I was just kind of like, he didn't need to be. I think he was already like convincingly mutilated enough.
Yeah. And further on the clone thing, this is from what I understand that came out of this cloning idea. Yeah. Is it like it's on the one side it's like, okay, Palpatine's no stranger to cloning, of course. Yeah. Like he's part of one of the three people behind the manufacturing and the order of like the clone army, right? That was something that was done as a plan through Cypher Diaz and Palpatine and Dooku, and like the three collaborated and well, not. I think it was like a Dooku Sifo-Dyas thing, but Dooku's acting on behalf of his master, right?
For sure.
I think like he obviously had involvement there, and it's like, so he's no stranger to cloning. So like it makes sense that if he were to kind of come back, like that would be the way to do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, first of all, I just don't like how he comes back in the first place. But like if he were to come back, I think, like, I don't know. Do you prefer the cloning thing, or do you prefer like the that's his body that's just mutilated and survived the fall?
I mean, getting past just accepting the fact that he's back, I mean, I think I'd rather just accept that he had the fall, I guess. Because that in the like watching the movie, I think that's kind of what he was portrayed like. I don't think they were thinking in like, oh yeah, this is like a clone of him or something like that. Because I think they could have explored that like way more than they did, and done a much better job of like convincing us that he's a clone rather than like this crippled, like semi like mutilated, really old dude. Like hung up on this apparatus and stuff like that.
In the book, they kind of apparently they go into how he's like he has multiple bodies to try and sustain his spirit, his body, because like after a while they kind of die or whatever. So he needs to find a vessel that's like a permanent host, right? So that's kind of the thing. But when I saw all the cloning tubes or whatever, that like I thought those were for Snoke, because you saw one with the Snoke parts in.
You see parts of him, and they talk about that in the
so that's actually like the next thing on here is Palpatine made Snoke as a test for Kylo Ren. So
that like I was already like in the movie, I kind of accepted that, like, all right, whatever, like Snoke, I guess, is like was like a clone or whatever of Palpatine's, but I still think that like in the article, that's just kind of a really weak way of explaining away. Yeah. Because I'm still choked that Snoke died like just with so little like context or backstory to it. I mean, like that adds a teeny tiny little bit more onto it, but that's just like.
I find it super bittersweet because I think he was like the surprise got me real good. I was like, oh shoot, like that just happened. But then at the same time, I was like, but like now we're not gonna find out anything, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's like I didn't even hate him enough to want him to die yet. I was just like, I've seen the dude
just getting good.
Like in the first movie, he was literally a hologram. We didn't even see him in person. It was just a really big, like intimidating hologram with a deep voice, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a dude to be reckoned with. Yeah. And then the next all we see from him is him like chatting and chilling on his throne, and then. Like gets his head chopped off, or I don't remember what. I don't even want to remember what.
How many times have you seen that movie?
Once. Once was enough. I never ever want to put myself through that again. Oh, that's good. So upset.
But yeah, like the fact that he's a test for Kylo Ren. I mean, I know Palpatine's a schemer and like he likes to long-term plan. But like, unless he really like,
he already killed his dad.
It doesn't make any sense. Like the fact that Kylo Ren is supposed to be tested by Snoke. Like, ignoring the fact like of his expectations that would come out of this relationship between Snoke and Ben Solo. His end goal is not Ben Solo at all. He wants Ben Solo dead. Because he wants Rey. Like his end goal is Rey, right? So when he tells Ben Solo to go out and kill Rey, I think what he's thinking is that Rey's gonna kill him, right? And then Rey's gonna come after Palpatine or whatever, and then that's when he'll get Rey and all her rage or whatever to kill him, and then he would infect her as the vessel, right? So I think that's his plan, because by the end of the film, I got the feeling that it's like, oh, this was the plan all along, is to have Rey standing here in front of him, let that little line that he says, my granddaughter has come home or whatever, like, and so and then he's very adamant about like how the story of Skywalker is going to end when he shoves Ben Solo down that little hole when he's comes back with the blue lightsaber. Yeah. So I was like, okay, all right. So first of all, Snoke, okay, according to the novel, is supposed to be this entire time was a test for Ben Solo, and the entire end goal of this is Rey. Like I don't know what this whole thing was about. Like I don't know why. Like it feels so forced. It feels so forced that Snoke was built as a test for Ben Solo. Like,
it's just trying desperately to explain away or fill in the gaps. And it's just kind of another sad attempt.
Yeah,
or like you said, a bittersweet attempt to kind of smooth things over.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little quote that he's got, and he said to Kylo Ren, he said, the Emperor, he says, "You did well to destroy him." So he intends Snoke to be like a stepping stone, right? To
I mean, I guess to me, like really, like we knew so little about Snoke though. I think the more significant stepping stone was killing Han Solo. And if he really wanted to test him, he should have made him kill his mother, like Leia or whatever.
Yeah.
That would have been a way more like substantial, like, but I don't know. I'm thinking way too much about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm putting way too much thought into that.
It's just so
it's kind of half-arsed.
Yeah, like knowing that this was not the plan from the beginning is not helping me trying to wrap my mind around all of this.
No, yeah.
At all. But if we were to come to terms with like everything, this novel in this particular situation,
we're not coming to terms.
No, we're not so far. It's not helping. But like if we were to just like take it and run, like so far this one point about how Snoke was a test for Kylo Ren is not working for me. Like it doesn't do the justice.
No.
I think more reasonably he could be like a test for making a clone, and he just looks all like messed up and everything just because he didn't turn out right.
And like now that I think about it too, like if he was really a test, then why was it so easy for Kylo Ren to kill him? Because it literally takes him like half a second to
exactly
dice him up. I mean, it's like
exactly
that's it.
There was also something weird. So in the canon recently, they've been establishing that Snoke looks the way he did in the films because he had some sort of encounter with Luke Skywalker and lost a fight.
Interesting.
So this has kind of like been established and hinted at since the Last Jedi Expanded Edition novelization, I believe, where Snoke mentions that his previous encounter with Luke Skywalker had kind of made him out to be that way a little bit.
That would have been way more interesting. So I wish that was in the dang movies.
So this is all before the movies take place, of course, but yeah, naturally. But what I thought was really weird about that whole thing is that there is a test tube with Snoke bits in it.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if that's the same Snoke pieces that we saw on the ship, or if it's just a failed Snoke creation that's just kind of
in the
dead
article
in the
it talks
tube,
about.
Right?
I think in the article that they say they're in that scene, there was like multiple clones or renditions of Snoke or something like that, and I was like, wait a second, I thought there was only like one. Like head and then other body parts. So I'd
there's a few body parts like floating in the tube.
So I'd have to like watch through it again and really be like, okay, which tube is like this then and blah blah blah. Because like you were saying, I thought it was just like the leftover bits from when he got hacked up by Kylo Ren.
And then I was thinking like, how did they get those parts there? Like has somebody been like I wouldn't put it past me to think like somebody, like maybe General Pride or whatever, has been kind of working with Palpatine this entire time. Maybe he picked up the pieces of Snoke before that whole ship kind of ripped apart by the cruiser from the Resistance or whatever. But like, come on. Like,
it's like this point, dude.
I'm like, oh, it's so broken. Like, it's such a broken story. Okay, so the next one, Palpatine is attached to an Amen harness. Yeah, so this is what you were talking about earlier. It's like this came out of Star Wars Legends, out of the really old comics. I have some of them from the expanded universe, but back in the 80s and stuff, they did some Star Wars comics and super weird comics, super weird stories. So I think this either came out of one of those or maybe they came out of one of the maybe one of the 90s comics, maybe. I can't exactly say. I can't really find it on here. Regardless, that kind of life support harness attachment,
Yeah.
it was probably something from Story Group, honestly, where it was probably advice that was given to the author. It said like, hey, by the way, Star Wars has a life support harness. It's called an Omni harness. It was in Star Wars Legends. Like you
Yeah.
could, if you want, you could like use that as a hook to kind of describe this massive anime style mech arm that
Yeah.
he's attached to, which the design looked really cool, by the way. But
Oh
still,
no, yeah, it did.
Um,
That was something I just didn't have any complaints about in that movie.
yeah. I thought it was weird he didn't have any legs, and then all of a sudden his costume changes after he's like all better and stuff. I was like, okay, we're
Yeah.
getting into Barbie territory here, where just a magic like clothing change when he
Oh my gosh,
sucks the
yeah.
life out of his granddaughter. It's like, okay, now he's got this nice little red dress on. Like, has he inherited her femininity or something? I have no idea. Okay,
Awesome.
Palpatine's disciples built Exegol Sith fleet. This is something that was confirmed by the visual dictionary as well. I don't buy the visual dictionaries, but I just look at them online and then I'm like, cool, I learned a few things.
Yeah.
That's about it. I'm not one to kind of go back through visual dictionaries too much, but
Yeah, I think they kind of mentioned that in the article too. Like that wasn't really something that we needed to be told. Like it was kind of observable. Watching the movie, you kind of have to like figure that out for yourself. Like, okay, like I guess like his fanboy club or whatever, his cult buddies that we know absolutely nothing about and don't really see any faces were the ones that just decided to build this.
And apparently all the people manning those ships were the children of the like worshiper people in that whole arena, right? So
I guess so.
they're all like related to each other or something like that. So
Probably.
yeah, I don't know how all that goes down, but regardless, whether like I guess Palpatine was sending ships out during the time of the Empire to this place to be held in reserve, I guess. But and then maybe later modified to have those planet-killing weapons on it, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, again, like, just, okay, whatever. Just like something else.
Yeah.
How Emperor Palpatine survived Return of the Jedi. So it says here, motivated by the flickering light he sensed in Darth Vader, Palpatine had been making the necessary preparations after his eventual death for years. So when Anakin threw him into the Death Star's shaft, Palpatine was ready. He was falling. The Emperor thrust his consciousness far, far away into his clone body on Exegol. Sadly for him, the transfer was imperfect, and the clone body wasn't an ideal vessel for his power. So I guess he never tested this, obviously. He just kind of like
I guess
had the backup plan there if he ever, needed it. But I guess what that like when he hits the bottom of this shaft, yeah, like all the light kind of like goes like up. Yeah, you can, maybe that's his spirit. I don't know. Like it's just here's the thing about the sequels, which I don't get. That like I just don't understand that people can kind of like grip these a little bit better than the prequels. First of all, they're just not George's stories. But then secondly, like when you get something like that, where it's like we're taking a character that died in one of the original trilogy films and you're changing this, you're like, it's not even just adding on to the story, like we're making a sequel that kind of follows. At this point, they're taking existing material and kind of like, changing it, right? Like people always give it so much hate for like stupid things, like taking the original edit for the originals and then like adding Hayden Christensen's ghost in there as a Force ghost, right? I think it's like a cool change. Honestly, like I don't care about all the changes. Like it doesn't change the narrative of the movie, right?
No.
But like when it comes down to something like this, it's like, okay, now we're just supposed to accept that like Palpatine falling down this hole, screaming as he's going down, now we're supposed to just assume that's like, okay, even though he's like scared, freaking out, like, falling to his death kind of thing,
Yeah.
He knows he's got a backup plan. So like, why is he freaking out? You know, like I just like.
Yeah, and like knowing Palpatine, like, do you really think he would have just been like chilling? He's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Darth Vader's gonna kill me at some point. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Like,
exactly.
I mean, like, sure, he was preparing for it or whatever, but I think he's a little more decisive and
yeah,
like evil-minded than that. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna clone myself.
and it also just it just more so just like I don't know. I feel like the importance of I know Anakin's sacrifice was made on behalf of his son. Like that, it doesn't take importance away from there.
Yeah.
But the entire like kind of George Lucas idea of like him being this chosen one that was supposed to destroy the Sith, it kind of takes meaning away from that a lot.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that in their article too.
Like
It just kind of makes it seem like a real, or I can't remember how they worded it.
Like
in
he's
the
supposed to be the
article.
chosen one, which means bringing balance to the Force. It doesn't mean necessarily that he's going to destroy the Sith. It just means bringing the Force back into balance. But still, like the line kind of is now a little more blurred now that like we have the guy who was making it imbalanced all along. He's just back again, right?
Yeah, like and so as I was saying, like in the article, I don't remember how they worded it, but it basically makes like when you think about it, like you're saying, like it kind of makes the entire like Return of the Jedi like a lot darker because you see like the entire like end of the movie is everyone celebrating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the day, like, you know, the Galactic Civil War is more or less won, but then they haven't really won. Like Sidious is still alive and stuff like that. And
yeah,
so it's
like
you're
thinking the whole time
nullifies all the celebration and everything
right?
like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really?
Well, then it because I also had kind of a flicker of hope when I thought, okay, Anakin says to Rey in that final moment, you know, bring balance to the Force, Rey, as I once did, right? And when I think about that, when I was in the theater, I was thinking this entire time, I was like, please don't be a second chosen one. Please don't be a second chosen one. Like, there's only one chosen one.
Yeah.
But like this entire time, like I've been thinking, okay, 30 years have gone by. It's a really kind of crappy small time of like, you know, balancing the Force to now having to balance it again, right? Like the Jedi waited like thousands of years for this to happen, like the balance of the Force, right? Of which it happened. Yeah. And now it's undone like 20 something odd years later. Like are you kidding me? So anyway, if that aside though, I was thinking to myself, okay, if Palpatine did come back, hopefully, and you know, I would assume that he only came back recently as of the sequel trilogy, just because there has to have been at least some window of time where he was gone, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. He's been alive this entire time. He just transmitted his conscience from one body to another. He's never died. Like, like that to me bothered me a lot. Like I was like, are you kidding me? Like, so Anakin never killed Palpatine.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just so lame.
He never killed Palpatine. I was like, if you think about it, that changes so much more about Return of the Jedi than any minor edit does to who shoots first in the cantina. Yeah. I was like, dude, stop complaining, man. Like who complains about little petty things like that? And you get this massive thing. And I was like, when I say dude, I don't mean you. I mean like just people, just like other fans, right? Like I'm like,
no,
man,
totally. Of all the things you can complain about,
I'm like, out of all the things you could complain about, you choose that over this? Maybe not, maybe both or whatever, but like I don't know, like I don't get it. I just don't understand like how they can think that way.
Dude,
right?
at this point I don't care enough anymore.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm like,
let's rip the next one out here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rey's father is a failed Palpatine clone. So
I appreciated that. I think I mentioned to you before.
This is something that I hoped and wished that is a reality. Because nobody wants to think what Palpatine is doing.
So upset. All of us were so upset. That was like, we had a good solid like bit on that last time, or like when we talked about the movie after we had watched it. That was hilarious. How upset all of us were, and now this basically
the first thing I was thinking after that movie was like, who did Palpatine shag up? Like,
Yeah.
like what did I just witness?
Poor soul.
Yeah.
Depraved soul.
Like that little line he's got when he refers to Rey himself as his granddaughter. I was like, I'm watching. This is a nightmare right now. I can't like visually. It's supposed to look like a nightmare. I'm like feeling that. I'm like, this can't be happening. This can't be Star Wars right now. Like I'm just like, this is not happening. And I was thinking like Palpatine shagging somebody up, and I was like, okay, this is not cool. This is not Palpatine. This is not in character. This changes the whole character of Palpatine. And fortunately, okay, because of the stupid cloning thing, at least it's a clone. Her father's a clone.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. So, we can move past that, but
he's void of powers.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm hating on this too much. I don't know, but I don't know. I just think the whole thing is just ridiculous.
That being said, I was glad. I was like, all right, I can appreciate this.
I can appreciate
me feel
this.
better.
I can appreciate this for sure.
Makes me a little happier.
So it means that she doesn't have a grandmother because Palpatine's a single dude. So
yes,
he's a single Palpatine. Old Sheev
I like how
Palpatine.
poignantly they bring that up in the article. Like they're also you can also tell that they're kind of relieved too.
Yeah. You can totally tell. So we can just move on from there. Palpatine attempted to create a Force dyad with Anakin.
I was kind of confused when they brought this up in the article because I guess obviously I haven't read this book that they're reviewing yet, but I was just kind of like, that's a really to bring that up. There's a really weak foundation kind of to support that he actually did try to make a dyad with Anakin.
I don't know why he would, honestly, because with the Force dyad, it's like, okay, there's some benefits where it's like you get to be teleporting ish towards the other person and have communication with them without hologram devices.
And Palpatine is an absolute leader, and he's the Sith, and then Vader is his
apprentice.
And so for him to want an equal relationship with his apprentice,
that's
is
weird,
really
right?
really strange.
Well, the fact that you can draw on each other's life, right? The life force of the bond, or whatever they call it, whatever the description was, they're able to kind of share life with each other, I guess, through the Force, right?
I guess.
So
that's not really. I mean, I guess that's something Anakin would have wanted, but I don't think that's something Palpatine ever would have wanted.
No, I don't. Well, and if Palpatine did want it, he'd probably just want to suck the life out of Vader and then get Luke as the apprentice, right?
Yeah.
Which would kind of make a little more sense, but at the same time, it's why would you want to Force dyad with your apprentice when you know that they're gonna either kill you eventually as a Sith Lord? This is part of the tradition, right?
Yeah.
So why would you want a close bond with your apprentice when the whole idea is to hate each other?
Yeah. And for him to have absolute control over his apprentice and his entire empire. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
not you don't see him rooting for Vader to be his co-emperor.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's only ever two, one master, one apprentice. You don't kind of become an apprentice as a Sith. You're not taught from the young age. It's respect your master, right? You're kind of, as a Sith, the whole idea is just to be fueled by hatred and anger, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually become more powerful than the master, overpowering the master, killing the master. And now with the Rise of Skywalker, they added in this other element where when that happens, all the that Sith master's soul or whatever gets kind of gets to live inside the new master, the apprentice that killed that master, and then it kind of the cycle continues. So it kind of brings meaning to Palpatine's line of how all the Sith live in him, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on there, but I'm I was thinking to myself it's just kind of weird. It's just a little weird. And then it also kind of doesn't make any sense with this. Why would he want to Force dyad with Anakin Skywalker? No idea.
No. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just all right.
It's just one of those things, right?
Yeah.
And then that's all there is, I think. That's all there is on here. There's another article called "Why Star Wars Fans Have Forgiven George Lucas." I wonder why.
It's because we've discovered something worse, so much worse.
Oh my goodness, so much worse. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I just honestly like.
Yeah, the article was okay. I was like, okay, thank you for trying to smooth things over.
Yeah, it's like I
politely reject some of the.
Yeah, I will politely reject, all this Palpatine stuff. I love Ian McDiarmid. I love the Emperor. I love Chancellor Palpatine. Like,
yeah, the character is awesome.
Stuff,
it's just like disappointing that they brought it back in such a
it just felt like such a desperate attempt to kind of dig the sequels out of a hole that was out of a grave that like they'd just been dropped into when they threw George's ideas out the window initially with The Force Awakens, right?
You know what it kind of reminds me of almost? It's like playing like a video game like Star Wars Battlefront or something like that. And they did to the movie what they would do with like DLC content where they just kind of drop like, oh, hey, here, guess what? Here's a character pack or something like that. Yeah. And that's basically what the movie
Guys,
was.
Guess what? Like, here's some
Guess
sequels.
what? Yeah, DLC, downloadable content now. New update. Get it.
Yeah, added on material.
Yeah, exactly.
Added on material. Yeah. But I always think about what George said about how if he were to do the sequels, it would take him 10 years to do it right. And I was like, 10 years to do it right.
Oh, man.
We got the sequels in half the time.
Oh my gosh.
And not to say they were done right at all. Like they weren't, like, at least my opinion is they were done very terribly. And it's like, as a trilogy, it doesn't feel like one at all. Like if you look at the original trilogy, there's a really well constructed arc there. The prequels have a masterfully constructed arc there. There's so many parallels in the Phantom Menace and then in Revenge of the Sith, and especially musically as well. Like John Williams is at his best in the prequels, and it's just like with this trilogy, man. Like this third one just felt like it was trying to make a trilogy out of two separate films. Because of like the Last Jedi veering off in one direction, and The Force Awakens going on a completely different trajectory from the original saga as a whole. Like from start to finish, you hardly get any of the sequel of the original characters except for Han and Chewie, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, well, if I want to watch a Han and Chewie movie, I'd honestly rather watch Solo. Like that's a decent movie. Like I wasn't super upset with Solo at all. Like I thought that was pretty great. Rogue One, Solo, awesome movies.
Yeah, Rogue One. Yeah, I really liked Rogue One. So Solo, there was like more things I was upset about with Solo, but it was definitely better than all three of the
yeah exactly. I don't think it needed to happen. In fact, I wasn't stoked for it at all when they announced it. I was like, why Solo? But but at the same time, like when I went and saw it, I was like, hey, it's not that bad. Like I was like, after about 5-10 minutes, I kind of was sold on younger Solo a little bit more, and then
I think the only thing what bothered me about that movie was that there was like a lot of things where I was just like, you could have done that a lot better.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that aside.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how much time we got left? About 20 seconds or so. Yeah, just like as far as like this book goes, like I appreciate the fact it tried to like bring narrative and reason to the whole thing, but like, it's not going to change my opinion on the movie at all. Like,
no, not really.
No way.
Yeah. And honestly, now that I think about it too, like we should probably do a discussion on the prequels sometime, because now that I think about it, like there's things I'm like, I could nitpick from the prequels, but like a lot of movie franchises and stuff, they'll do like a single type prequel, whereas Lucas did 3 whole prequel movies. And all 3 of those movies were like pretty like flawlessly connected to the original trilogy. That's not an easy thing to do.
No,
make 3 whole,
for sure,
like so well connected movies and stuff like that. And like I said, there's stuff I could nitpick, but
yeah, we should do that. Movies. We should do that, and then we should do like one of those, and then and then one of them just like I've always wanted to do a saga episode as well. Just now that the saga's done, we should just sit down and talk about like at a round table, just like chat about like the saga as a whole, right? Like like all and kind of like hash things out, try and like connect the dots a little bit. But
the saga we know and love, or this nonsensical.
No, yeah, honestly, man, like as much as I don't like the sequels in a way, I mean, I've bought so many of like the books and whatever, but like as much as I just don't like the narrative that's come out of these movies, it's still Star Wars. I'm not going to be one of those people that like skips those movies when I'm taking someone through the series, whatever. Like, like I'm not made that way. It's like, it's Star Wars. Anyone who's like being like shown Star Wars for the first time, everyone's got their own opinion, right? Yeah. Like, and that's like one of the best things about Star Wars is like everyone's got their favorite, everyone's got their own order of like viewing. You know, there's no like, it's 100% subjective of like anything, right? Yeah. So like, you know, I never want to kind of ruin someone's Star Wars experience by like not showing them the things that I don't like.
No, I mean, now that I think about it too, right? Like, is as much as like, you know, I dislike things about the story and related to that, like the sequel movies are visually amazing movies.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
Visually, they're so awesome, and it is like entertaining to watch it for the most part. Yeah. So like, if I was showing them to like someone I knew who was just like, I like a good like sci-fi movie or something like that, or like, if I had any kids, I was like, hey, watch this. I wouldn't like a 6-year-old isn't going to care about all the deep like story and back stuff that we do. So
no, and also just like as like hardcore fans, like we just personally invest so much in like the
so
things
much of our lives,
especially in the things that we like, right? So like you know, like a lot of the fans of the original trilogy, like if they go out to the store and buy any things for Star Wars related, like you know, you'll be naturally drawn to like the era of films that you enjoy the most, right? So like if I'm at the store and I'm standing in front of, you know, a large group of glasses with pictures on them, you know, I'm drawn to the ones that have the Republic logos and like the Jedi Legacy logos and all that stuff. Whereas like other people might pick up the ones with the Imperial and the Rebel insignias on them, right? Oh yeah. But then like kids today will pick up the one that has the little Porg on it and be like, hey, yeah, it's Star Wars, right? So it's like you know, like there's a different generation for every trilogy, and I don't want to say it's like.
Or you're like Ben and you just like Porg anyways.
I don't mind Porgs. I don't mind Porgs. I don't hate Porgs. I don't love Porgs. I'm just kind of like, hey, they're a thing and they've got a funny moment or two. I quite enjoyed the child. The child is.
Oh my gosh, I want that. I want him on my dashboard.
I want to really quickly bring up something before we wrap up here. If you go to a Clone Wars Talk episode now, with we've renovated the titles, we've renovated the description, so the titles are easier to find them. And going forward, they'll all be starting off with Clone Wars Talk and then the part number in brackets. So if you're watching Clone Wars chronologically with us here on Star Wars Escape Pod, you'll be able to follow along a lot better. So if you take a look in the description boxes now, you'll get a set of double digits and then a set of 3 digits. So the double digits are the number of on the list chronologically of like which number you'd watch it at, and then the 3 digits there are the episode ID number. If hyperlinks are working in your app, you'll be able to click the name of the episode. It'll take you to a StarWars.com page where it'll provide you with an episode guide and additional little clips and videos to watch. And then if you hit the stream on Disney Plus, you'll be able to open up the Disney Plus app through that link, and it'll play that episode right there on your device, which is super cool. If hyperlinks are not working in your description app and you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, go to our website at starwarsescapepod.podbean.com. and you can kind of see the description box there. The hyperlinks should be working for you there, but this should make it a little easier to follow along at home there with what episodes we're talking about, and a direct link to watching them right there on your phone. So that is super cool. Anyhow, thanks again for listening. May the Force be with you.